Hi, I'm Steve Whaley with Bluebird, and welcome to A Bird's Eye View. In this particular episode, we're going to be talking about the financial fuel cost savings of propane buses compared to diesel. Here with me today is Anthony Jackson of Bibb County. Anthony, thank you for coming all the way over to our place here to do this particular podcast. I know you're just next door, but we really do appreciate you carving out some time for us to kind of go over the numbers on this. Thank you for being here.
Steve, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's a good deal. So let's go back. Before we get into the juicy numbers of how all this lays out, let's go back in time. You started migrating your fleet to propane. What year was that?
2014 is when we purchased the first fleet of propane buses. If I'm not mistaken, that was 31 buses purchased during that time.
In 1 year. That's a big chunk to take a bite out of.
It was.
Now, I know you weren't exactly the first one in Georgia, but I think you were close behind the very first one in Georgia. Is that true?
That's correct. That's correct. And not only were we close to being the first to purchase, we've been consistently purchasing propane buses for over 10 years now.
Okay, so you're getting into the swing of it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So what were some of the things getting started, that pushed you into this? Because everybody has a resistance to change, okay? And so what was it that got past the resistance to change for Bibb County to kind of dive into this new realm?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that really pushed or facilitated this move were the issues that we saw with regeneration on the diesel engines. And so when we made the purchase, I'll be quite honest, after making that purchase, you don't have any real data to say, tell you what that looks like. So early on, when I would talk about it, I would only talk about cost at the pump. I really would not get into, cost per mile. I know what was being said. I know what was being taught it. Mm-hmm. I did not get into maintenance costs because I didn't have any real data. I didn't have my own data that I really felt comfortable. So I would really just focus on what it cost at the pump.
Mm-hmm. And then the operational benefits too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not just the regen, but okay, now that no particulate matter filters to replace, you don't have the NOx sensors to replace, so the maintenance.
It being much quieter.
Oh, yeah. Very
minus the diesel fumes, which the drivers all love.
Okay.
They love the bus that is much, much quieter than diesel. Sure. You and I spoke earlier this week, and we were talking about the how quiet the propane bus is compared to the diesel. And I mentioned to you that I'm around so many propane buses now. Not so many.
Most of your fleet.
Exactly. Most of my fleet's propane now. So when I hear people say that, I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
What it's like to be back on a...
Yeah, I forgot about that. Those diesel buses are really loud, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay, so now fast forward, that was 2014. We're 10 years into this. What are the stats now of your entire fleet makeup? You have...
So right now we have 133 propane buses, mm-hmm. about 70 diesel, uh-huh. and then the rest of the buses to make up our total fleet of 201 are gas burners.
Okay.
Unleaded fuel.
Right. So you're using those for some outliers and the extended field trips and things like that.
Yes. The majority of our unleaded fuel buses are Type A buses right now, small buses.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. All right. So let's cover a little bit how these things get fueled now. You started off 38 buses. So what did you...
31.
I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. See some numbers, guy. I appreciate that. We're going to get into some numbers here in a minute too. So 31 buses. How did the infrastructure start? It was one location, right?
So that's interesting. So to be honest, we had the buses before we had the infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
So quite interesting. And the infrastructure was probably 3 to 4 months as we worked with the board to get that in place.
Okay.
And then once we got everything in place, we started out with 4 1,000-gallon tanks.
Okay.
At one location. So we started receiving bobtail loads
Now, bobtail loads, for those out there in the audience might not know what a bobtail truck is. It's that fuel truck that goes everywhere. It's got about 3,500 gallons in it, and so they could drop a load at your place from that bobtail size.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Very good. And propane's everywhere. It goes into every community in these United States, so it's not hard to get them to come out and do that. So, all right. So you have 4 of these 1,000s that are manifolded together to take that load. And then what happened when you started getting more than that 31?
Well, once we got more into the 31 and continued to purchase and add buses to the fleet, we actually put our fuel purchasing back out for bid and we had more vehicles at the time and realized the need for a larger tank,
larger storage capacity
exactly.
at your site. Okay.
Exactly. And with that, when we put it out for bid, that's what we requested, a larger capacity. And so we went from the 4 1,000-gallon tanks to a 18,000-gallon tank.
There you go.
And now we were able to move from the bobtail loads to the transport loads.
That moved 10,000 gallons or so.
Absolutely. And which offered us more savings.
Sure. It's a significant amount. I mean, it's the whole, big box store. The more you buy, the
Absolutely.
gets.
Absolutely.
Unlike some of the other energy sources, but, propane falls into that, hey, there's volume purchases. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now fast forward all the way to 2024. We're 10 years into this. We have, more propane buses than we have anything else. We have some gasoline for, the type A, and we have some remaining diesels. Let's take a look at these numbers now, because you didn't have that forensic data, historical data, back when you started this.
I did not.
So we had to use the calculators that would project what it could be like, if the fuel cost was this, if we're going this many miles per gallon, and you can kind of, do a little bit of forecasting. But now we're in a spot where we have historical data. So let's pull out the numbers here for the last 12 months that you've been operating, propane and diesel. We're going to do a little comparison now. So let's start with diesel. Okay. How much did you spend on your diesel bill for the last 12 months?
So for the last 12 months, we spent $259,640.
Okay. And what did that buy you, Anthony? How many miles did you get to go on that $259,640?
393,000 miles, 830.
Okay. So if we do a cost per mile out of that kind of investment in diesel to get that many miles, now my calculator says 66 cents a mile. Okay. So that's what it costs to operate your diesel fleet on running on diesel. So let's jump up to the propane now.
Okay.
You have a propane supplier, so you can call your propane supplier and you can check your invoices against what they're doing. How much did you spend on propane this last 12 months?
So we spent $790,599 on propane fuel.
Okay. How many miles did you get for that $790,599?
2,053,143 miles.
Okay. So what does your calculator say on a cost per mile for that?
39 cents per mile.
Okay. Now let's make sure we got this right. We went from 66 cents a mile on diesel down to 39 cents a mile on propane.
Correct.
Okay. So if my math does that correct, that's a 27 cents per mile cost savings, right?
Your calculator works.
Yeah, my calculator works. So let's go back and just, because we want to brag to our school board, we want to brag to our superintendent, we want to brag to the community now. At 27 cents per mile, let's just go with 2 million miles. If we go with 2 million miles times 27 cents, that's more than $500,000 in fuel cost savings in just 1 year.
This is true.
Okay. So your salary is based on, a commission of fuel cost savings and everything else.
Absolutely not.
Not. Okay. You just get a good pat on the back for saving the county $500,000.
Yes, good job.
Okay. But that's not all. You know, there's something else that you do that folks, even in a non-tax-paying world, get to take advantage of the federal alternative fuel tax credit, okay, which is 36 cents a gallon.
Yes.
So now you need to ask your propane provider every year how many gallons all this is to reconcile that, so that when you file with the IRS for this, what happens when you file? How many gallons was that anyway? That $790,000 dollars bought you how many gallons?
790,000. The gallons on that was
that the 616,925?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That is correct.
So we have 616,925 gallons times 36 cents. I mean, that almost adds up to some lunch money. $222,093. So it really wasn't $790,000 that you paid for your propane. You got to take the $222,000 out of there too, because that's how much you got in fuel cost reduction. So now we're at $568,000 and $506,000 for those 2 million miles, which in my calculation here comes down to not 39 cents a mile, but now it's 28 cents a mile. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So we have 66 cents a mile on diesel. We have 28 cents a mile on propane. So that's a 38 cent gallon
difference.
Not gallon, 38 cents per mile difference. And how many miles are we going again?
2,053,143 miles.
Okay. Let's just go to 2 million.
All right.
That's 2 million. Now, 2 million times 38 cents is now we're going from lunch money to dinner money here. Okay. That's $760,000 in fuel cost savings in just 1 year.
1 year.
Okay. So do they have a statue down at the school district for you?
Absolutely not. Hey, they told me that's expected of me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, you make it happen very well, Anthony. So what's next? What's going to happen next?
So we will continue to maintain our purchase of propane school buses. I mean, it just makes too much sense for us not to.
A couple of dollars, too.
Absolutely.
Above that cents.
Yes. Makes dollars and cents for us not to. So we'll continue to add to our fleet and make sure we're just maintaining those units and pushing them out into the future.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, thank you very much for coming here and sharing your story with us. These numbers are amazing. And the thing is, it's not out of line with other school districts who are doing the same. But I really appreciate you doing the forensic dive in there and collecting that data and sharing it with us today.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on a bird's eye view of propane fuel cost savings.